Okay, so I'm going to record a quick video about walking you through Reaper, and we'll see how it goes. So the basics are, these are your tracks on the left here, and when you highlight them, they're selected. And each one of these tracks is named after the character that they're in. These buttons on the far left here, this is for setup, this is for recording, this is for editing, and this is for storyboard markers, which I guess some podcasts support that. The big thing that, and I apologize because you won't be able to hear the audio from the computer very well. So you can zoom in and out by either hitting plus on your keyboard and just holding it down, or minus. Shift Z will zoom all the way out. If you hold Option and scroll, that zooms in or zooms out where your mouse is. You're zoomed in and you shift scroll, that's left and right. If you the tracks are not big enough, but if you just regular scroll, that will go up and down. If I had, there you go. Regular scroll is up and down. All right, and so I'm going to zoom out, and we will clean this up a little bit. Command on the Mac and a scroll shrinks the tracks. The other thing so home button on the keyboard takes you all the way home. End key on the keyboard takes you all the way to the end. The way I like to work is to create a region marker. So this is a timeline selection here, and this little bar in the center here that you can click around, that's your timeline indicator. So if you make a time selection and you go Shift R, I've just made a time-based marker that I can right-click on, and we'll call this narrator. Okay, and then I'm going to set the color to red. For whatever reason, it doesn't always pick the right color in this menu. Anyways, click OK, then click OK, and now we have a narrator. And then maybe I'll make another time selection, Shift R, and that will go Edit Region by right-clicking on this bar at the top. And then we'll call this Scene 1, and I like to set colors to everything because that's who I am. And click OK, and then I'll make like a Scene 2, Shift R, and it makes a region the size of my timeline selection. Scene 3, you can name them whatever you want. Oftentimes I'll name them from the location that the actors are in, but because they're all, in this episode, they're all in the same episode, they're all in the same location, doesn't matter. The benefit of this is if you're over here and you're scrolled in, you can hit Option 1, and the range indicators are always, they get hotkeys automatically, and it's Option 1 is the first one, Option 2 is the second one, Option 3 is the third one, and so on. So by laying those down early, I can quickly jump to my different areas without having to zoom in or out. And then if I want to go to the front of my timeline, I can just go home on the keyboard. So let's make this nice and big. So I've got a nice thing. You can see at the bottom of the screen here, these are the track levels. And you can also, at the very top of the track levels here, I wouldn't really mess with this pan control here too much. You can select, this is your effects window by hitting this effects button. And so, for example, now on the right here, this is my effects control window. I can right click in here and go FX chain, load chain, and I've pre-made some chains. And what I've been using right now is SM voice template. I select that, and now when I play this, you'll see
Dear listener,
it has a lot more levels.
Place, but the waters at the
The one thing,
Oregon coast are world.
This is probably a little loud. So this one in the middle, that's JS Digital Versatile. basically that's how I do a quick adjust of levels if they're too bright. This output dB slider, I'll just bring it down to, I kind of do it by feel.
Cold and ravenous. Some of the darkest corners.
That's great. So now that we're kind of working on this thing, let's talk about how to edit. So by just clicking anywhere in the timeline, that moves your timeline indicator. By clicking and dragging, that creates a time selection. If you want to make an edit, or if you want to select a clip without moving the timeline indicator, hold down Shift and you'll select the clip and you won't move the timeline indicator. Of course it did it there, but it does work. If you want to add an edit to the clip, it's just the letter S on the keyboard as an edit. I can come here, add an edit, and play. The other thing is you can move to your different edits by on your keyboard, just up and down arrow will just move edit points. So if I left another edit here, this I can just toggle back and forth. If I want to select the clip underneath my timeline indicator, I just hit C. Oh, you have to make sure your track is selected. So remember, the track is like a light gray. So just hit C now that's selected. And now that is, I'll get the timeline indicator out of here. So you see, if I hit Shift, I can select that thing without moving the timeline indicator. You can also Command click, and it will do something similar. Let's get that. So if I come here and I select this clip here, I can put my timeline indicator over it, hit C. I can hit back. I think it's backslash. It's the slash right above the Enter key. It will make the timeline selection the size of the selected clip. This is helpful because I can do two things. I can either extract or ripple edit. If I want to just extract it, that's the comma key right to the left of the Enter key, and that will just remove everything inside that is selected inside of the timeline selection. The other option is so for example, I could put an edit here and an edit here, and then come here and hit C to select that clip, slash to select that area, and I can ripple edit in two ways. I can either use the colon key, or I can go Command X, and it will remove everything in that area and then slide everything over, even the markers. Another way to do timeline selections is I can hold Shift and go left or right arrow, and that will create the start of a timeline selection. And then I can, now that a timeline selection has been started, I can use my I and O key to set in and outs for that timeline selection. Unfortunately, if there is no timeline selection active, then these keys won't work. There has to be a timeline selection active in the timeline for this to work. But now I can go like out, now that I have a selection there, and then I can go ripple edit, colon, and now I've shrunk those two options together.
Dear listener, the sea is a dangerous place, but the waters at the Oregon coast are world-renowned.
So say I like
Dear
this
listener,
edit.
The sea is a danger.
I'll select it by hitting C, Command copy, and then I'll go Option 1 to my area in the back here, and then I'll go Command V. The one thing you need to always make sure before you paste is that you've selected the topmost track that you want to paste into. So say I had selected multiple tracks, the highest track level is where what will need to be selected. So this is a narrator. I'm going to put that one in. Boom. So that's just narrator. We'll zoom out a little bit and we'll get this scene close up to it. All right, and then I'm going to use this thing at the very top here. I can drag around the whole timeline with this, and I can see I made some edits up here. And if I made markers, so there's been markers already created by Adam when this was started. So if I want to bring those back, I can just hit F9 on the keyboard, and they'll show up here. I can change colors for them. And let's see, where did that go? I think we want Magic Boat interior. Let's make that one green. So that's the first one. Next up, I want to show you something really cool. I know what I've shown you is already so cool. So there's a bunch. This is all one big scene. I'm going to select all the tracks. Let's go ahead and just enable the tracks as well. So what I can do with Reaper is actually tell it to try to make a good guess on the silence in the clip and just go ahead and delete those. I've assigned that function to the D key. So hit D and a window, it showed up in my other monitor, but here it is. It's called Dynamic Split Item. And I think actually the default settings are pretty good, but at the very bottom, the leading pad and the trailing pad, I think bigger pads is better. But you can kind of see it's gone through and it's kind of figured out like, oh, no one in this purple track for Sam is talking for this long. And in this green track for Nora, it doesn't look like she's talking for that long. And what it'll do when I hit the split key is delete all the areas where it thinks there was silence for that clip. And for the most part, it does quite a good job. A good first pass. So now I have I have people's lines, and so if someone yelled loud enough that there's no silence in someone else's mic. So this is Dewey yelling right here, and it got picked up by 3 other mics. So it didn't do a good job here. Well, it did a good job. It's just that there isn't silence on those mics. So we'd go ahead and just delete those. And I'm guessing that's a little tight there. So I'll add a little. I should also walk you through. There's a couple things you should know. So where your mouse is affects what it does. So at the top left here, if you hit the top corner and drag, you'll see it's a fade. If you hit the center here, and you can see the mouse changes shape. You can drag it in or out once it's that shape. The bottom is similar. If you take from the very top and drag down, that's actually a volume control, and you can bring the volume down. Just kind of like a global. And then if you command drag, you can duplicate it. So I've just made 2 versions of that. If you hold shift and drag, oh, it doesn't seem to. Well, it doesn't seem to have a good way to lock it in place to drag it, but either way, the other thing I wanted to show you is these buttons at the top here. This button actually cuts, so if we had a selection here and I hit that, it'll ripple edit. This button, time selection, I don't actually know. So this button locks your mouse controls to time selection, so you won't be able to touch the clip without holding the shift key. If you like that, that's cool. This button at the top here, that actually makes an edit on a clip that is selected. So I just created an edit if you wanted to do that. And these buttons leave markers here. The button that will be most useful is this button here at the very end with the 2 triangle or the 2 squares in a line. If you hit that, it's kind of confusing what just visually happened. So I'll make these smaller, these tracks smaller, and I hit that button again. And what happens is underneath each track now I have envelopes where or automation depending on what software you're coming from. I can just click on this band here and I can bring down the volume or bring up the volume just in that area. You can right click if you're not seeing the green band because the orange band is just mute. It has an on or off feature. So it's either off, on, off, on. And by default, you'll just get mute. What you can do is just click on the mute area here, and these are the options for the things you can see. So maybe I want mute. That's center pan. I want volume. You can change what is being shown here. So you would click not on the track, but just below the track, and it'll give you the options. It's interesting, it's not giving me the option. Where do I? So if I click here, that's the options. Trim volume. Just oh, interesting. So now I have center. Show all active tracks. Well, it's showing me now a bunch. Anyways, so there's the controls there. If you right click on in the control area, for some reason I've done something weird to this one track. Now it's showing it to me. Volume, pan, width. No, I don't want that. This will show you your band. So if you want to do something it's a little more advanced, so you can see on this bottom track here with Sam, we just have mute. We just have unmute. The nice thing about the mute track, if you wanted, is you can do a time selection and essentially drag this down, and that will mute it. Everything inside the mute in the time selection, and then you can right-click here and get your volume pre-fades, and you could do something similar. So you can just bring it down a little. You can get more control, more granular control over how much it goes down if you make the track bigger. Remember, that's controlled by time selection, and then you can manually come in here and just kind of tweak it even more. So say I don't want that, so I'm going to go command in here, and I'll just kind of show you how I bang around in this. So like this is Adam, or this is Chris saying action. I'm going to select that, kill that. This is Dewey waking up. Okay, it's just a dream. And so essentially I'm going to get rid of a lot of this stuff, and this is the stuff I don't want, right? So I'm just selecting the tracks that I want to remove from, and I'm going to go comma. Oops. Oh yeah, you have to select the other. Oh, you can hit Shift C, and any track that's enabled, it will select the clips. Oh no, it'll just select all the clips inside of the timeline indicator. So anyway, so I've selected the clips that I want to get gone, and then I'm just going to hit comma, and those are gone. I know this is Dewey. I just want him here. It went a little tight on that one. Okay, so I can tell that Dewey's levels are too low, so I'm going to go click on his effects button here. Click on it to get this control here. I'm going to load this effects chain, just SM voice template, and it's probably going to be too loud. You're not my mommy. That's not too bad. Oh, it's because it's not on. So this is the other thing, the effects, you can hit this, will bring up your effects window, and this actually turns the effects on or off, this power button, and for some reason it's not letting me. Oh, we didn't apply. That can be a little confusing. In order to actually place effects onto a track, you have to make sure that this track is the one that is highlighted. So you have to see it go light gray. And now he'll have a lot more presence. You're not my mommy! And as I suspected, it's a little loud.
It's just a dream. Wait.
That's great. And then I'm going to get rid of that and that.
Someone on the other side of...
Just go ahead and make these connect.
Is there someone on the other side of this rusty circular cast iron door?
And then I'm going to close the space by hitting Shift right arrow to start a time selection. I'm going to go down arrow to go to the edit, down arrow to go to the next edit, hit O, hit X, Command X to close the space. This is a page turn here, so I'm going to go to the top here and go left, Shift right arrow, and then down arrow to kind of toggle. Okay, and the page turn ends here. Hit the out, the O button, and then hit Command X, closes it.
You knew. I mean, come on, Nora.
Well, we want to get rid of that.
You worked in the blind Lopan building.
It did okay here. So I can see that I'm going to want to make an edit to Grizz's line because he's orange. And Nora is green, so I'm just going to place my timeline indicator where I think it should go and hit S, and it'll auto-select the clip to the right, and I'll just go ahead and hit delete.
I had no idea my benefactor was a moon-worshipping criminal.
She's too loud, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure her track is gray and take her down to probably about 5.
I had no idea my benefactor was a moon-worshipping criminal.
That was a mistake at the front here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this clip by hitting C, hit backslash, and then I'm going to go ahead and just lift it out for now. I've got like a weird clip here. I'm going to get rid of it. Hit the out, and then I'm going to close the space. Oh, let's go ahead and close the space even more.
I had no idea my benefactor was a...
I might give her a little breath at the front and then add a little fade at the front.
I had no idea my benefactor was a moon-worshipping criminal mastermind.
Chris interrupted her.
See though.
Oh, I think I jumped ahead here. Where were we? We jumped too far ahead. Chris interrupted her. So this is BS. What is this?
You knew. I mean, come on, Nora. You worked in the blind...
So those are garbage. Okay, so...
I had no idea.
Okay, so the second take is probably the right take. So we'll just go ahead and I'll just lose this whole section here. I set a timeline indicator, you know, and then I'm going to go Command X and it closes. And then I can hear Grizz. He needs effects turned on. So I'm just going to go ahead and go effects chain, load the effects chain, go SM voice doom. He's going to be too loud probably.
I mean, come on, Nora.
He's too loud. I'm going to take him down to probably 6.
I mean, come on, Nora.
Not bad.
Lopan building.
And then I'm going to go stop here. This is the end of his line. I'm going to hit S and just delete.
I had no idea my benefactor was a moon-worshipping criminal
Okay.
mastermind.
And then I'm going to make a timeline indication start by hitting Shift right arrow. And then I'm going to come on over. And Dewey's line starts here. So I'm going to hit O, close it. And then it looks like there's probably a big space here. And then we'll close it. Ooh, I feel like that's... Let's just go ahead and... let's open it up.
Creepy guy from the Greek village? What are you two doing here?
And then we'll cut.
Mr. Sleepyhead is finally up.
And then I'll go like that. And then like that.
What is this place?
Cut.
Magic.
And then like that.
Magic boat. What does it look like? What does it look like?
And the line ends there.
I know what you're thinking, Dewey. But no, he didn't try to kill you.
Okay, so you can kind of see like with those few hotkeys, which is starting a timeline indicator, setting one, closing one, and then deleting that area, that you can kind of move through here pretty quickly. The other thing is I made this hotkey Shift F9 gets rid of the tracks down below. So if you're on a smaller screen, that's handy. The other thing that would be good to know is this indicator on the right here.
You knew. I mean,
So there's 4 bars here. the bars in the center are your actual gain.
I had no idea my benefactor was a moon worshipping
And
criminal
it actually feels like maybe
mastermind.
these guys are not loud enough. And then the ones on the outside, that's LUFS, which is loudness. It's some new loudness standard. And supposedly for podcasts, we're going to want to try to hit around -16 to -19. So we can see that the LUFS is a little soft on this so far. So we can probably actually give it more signal. Yeah, she's actually a little soft. Okay, so then I can just go back to hit F9. I'll come back to Nora, and I'll hit her effects, and I'll go to this JS digital versatility, and I'll just go ahead and let's see what happens when I send her to 8.
Is the order of Grendula, a godlike creature that is
And then I just for these purposes, we'll see.
to maintain the purity of the Holy Shark bloodline.
Maybe we could even give her a little more.
Into some details I had not yet known.
So that is the exciting stuff. If I go back to F9, this track on the very right here, this one called master, that's your master. That means anything you apply to this track will be applied to all tracks as well. What I like to set on my master, I have something in the effects chain. It's just called master limit. And that effectively will just monitor all the audio levels. And if someone gets too bright, it will try to push it down before it peaks, so that hopefully you can kind of push the levels a little to the extreme and then not peak.
Yeah, I see those, but let's just quickly touch on this patch of focus.
So just real quick, if you hit this power button, it turns off all effects for that track. If you hit that power button, it turns it back on. These are your general tracks, and I think that's the basics. The one thing you want to make sure always is save versions. So Command Shift S will allow you to save as, and so you can version 3 and then put your initials at the end. I'd always do that. The other thing too is, I would say if you're going to do something besides edit, it might be a good idea to mark, like replace edit and state like, oh, I'm going to be working on sound effects, and change that to SFX. But I would never reset the version. I would always progress the version moving forward, so everyone knows who gets in what the latest version is for this edit. It should be obvious the latest one is. And then so like if I was going to do this next scene, I would probably go like, oh, okay, so I've kind of come through here and I've cleaned this up. Let's say I would do a timeline selection, go Shift C would select everything, then go Command C, and then I'll go Option 2 because it's the next range selection, and I can tell that the highest track. Let's say there is no. I can tell you right now that there is no narrator in this scene. So we'll go C, and whoops. I just wanted to really exemplify this. So Shift C, select everything inside the timeline indicators, timeline selections. Command C to select everything. And then if I go Option 2 to go to the next range selection, when I paste this, it will paste in the wrong track because narrator is selected. It pasted everything up too high. So what I'll want, because Dewey, if we go back over here, we can see that the highest track is actually Dewey in this selection. I'm going to want to be over here. Whoops. I'm going to be over here and then make sure that Dewey's track is selected, and when I paste it in, everything will be aligned correctly. So Dewey's lines are on Dewey's track. And that's important because you'll want to be able to adjust Dewey's levels and different vocal frequency effects individually per person. So we need to be consistent on what track everyone's on. Also, all the tracks are named, per that character. So it only makes sense. I think that is the gist. If you wanted to export a clip, at the bottom left here is, so this is for markers. This top one's for markers. and it's gonna you have to do something special with that. I don't actually understand. This is the second button down. Looks like a waveform. You click on that, and it'll give you this window. And this is your export window, and you can set your settings and hit render. This thing will also walk you through all the steps you should do when exporting for actual podcasting. If you want to know where the folder is that for this project is, you can click this bottom folder button here, and I have two windows open, so it's opening up in the other window, but really, it's not going to come over. Okay, it's not going to come over, but a Finder window opened up, and it is there. Anything else that I think would be handy to know? Yeah, you can just select clips. If you're having problems where you can't select a clip, just make sure this top guy is not selected. If you want to make space, or so say for example you're editing over here you're editing in scene 1 over here, and you're like, oh, I want to make space, or I want to move all the other clips over. Essentially, you go shift backspace or backslash, which is the slash above the enter key, and that will make a timeline selection from where your timeline indicator is to the end of the timeline, and then it'll auto select everything. So you can come say oh, I need to make some more space here. I go shift backslash, and that will select everything, and now I can just move them left or right. I just want to double check that if I just had the top track selected and I hit backslash. Okay, so you have to have your tracks selected in order for that function to work correctly. That's sort of handy because you can basically unselect, say I've unselected that, and I actually just want to move Nora and Grizz's stuff. I could go here, shift backslash, and now I've just selected Nora and Grizz's stuff, and I can move just their stuff. Or I could remove, say there was a whole section that I wanted to get rid of, like right there, because maybe that was all junk, but I wanted to keep Dewey's stuff for some reason. That would be a good way to do it. So what's really handy here, is shift backslash, which is the slash above the enter key. That will get you your select alls, basically. Oh, and the other handy thing that I set is, so Shift Z zooms out to the whole timeline. If you were to make a timeline selection here and go Shift X, it will zoom into the timeline selection. So you can go. So that's another way you could kind of poke around the timeline is you could make a quick selection of this area. Shift X will go into the timeline. Shift Z will come out. Sometimes if you try something and it doesn't work, like for example the Shift X doesn't want to go, it's probably because for whatever reason something else in the program is selected. So just click in the timeline area and make sure that the timeline is actually selected, and then the hotkey should work correctly. And I think that should be it. I'm gonna go ahead and kill this record, and thank you for watching this wonderful video.